The middle class is shrinking. And if you are doing nothing, you already know where that trend points. For decades, people were told there was a reliable path. Study, work hard, stay responsible, buy a home, save a little, and you would probably be fine. That path has become far less reliable, not because people suddenly became lazy, but because the economics underneath that promise changed. And most people are still trying to win a new game using an old rule book. That is the first thing people need to understand. This is not just a vibes-based complaint or a dramatic headline. It is a structural shift. The middle is getting squeezed from both sides. Wages are under pressure, living costs keep rising, and asset ownership is becoming harder to reach. So even people who are doing okay on paper often feel like they are running harder just to maintain the same position. That feeling is not imagined. It is economic reality showing up in daily life. The first major reason is that inflation and essential costs have outrun a lot of salary growth: housing, education, healthcare, childcare, insurance. These are not fringe luxury categories. These are core life categories. And when they rise faster than wages, financial progress starts feeling fake. You may earn more than you did 5 years ago and still feel poorer because more of your income is being claimed before it ever reaches savings or investment. Higher income does not help much if the whole system got more expensive faster. The second reason is even more brutal. Assets rise faster than income. Stocks compound. Real estate appreciates. Productive businesses scale. Meanwhile, most people are still trying to catch up using earned income alone. That is the real gap. If assets are getting more expensive faster than you can save for them, then ownership keeps moving further away, even while you are working hard. The people who already own assets get pulled upward. The people who do not are left chasing a moving target. The third reason is the burden in the middle. If you are rich enough, you often have better tools, better structures, and more ways to optimize. If you are poor enough, there may be support programs in some systems, but the middle often gets hit from every direction at once. Taxes, social contributions, housing costs, debt payments, and lifestyle expectations. You earn too much to feel protected and too little to feel free. That is why the middle class often feels exhausted. It is carrying the maximum pressure with limited leverage. Hey, I'm Kira. By the end of this video, you will understand why the middle class is shrinking, why old safe behavior no longer protects people the way it used to, and what 4 practical moves can help you avoid getting left behind. Because the goal is not panic. The goal is adaptation. Once you see the structure clearly, the response becomes much more practical. Here is the hard truth. Stability behavior that worked 30 years ago can now create slow financial decline. There was a time when a decent salary, cautious saving, low-risk thinking, and simple obedience to the standard life path could carry you a long way. Today, that same behavior can leave you underinvested, overexposed to inflation, now and dangerously dependent on a paycheck. That is not because discipline stopped mattering. It is because discipline without adaptation becomes outdated. This is the trap of modern middle-class life. People think standing still is neutral. It is not. When costs rise faster than wages and assets rise faster than savings, standing still is functionally moving backward. It still matters, but it is no longer enough by itself. A stable paycheck with no asset strategy is now much weaker protection than it used to be. And this is where the just earn more advice breaks down. More income helps, obviously, but income is only one part of the equation. What matters just as much is where that income goes: taxes, housing, debt service, consumption, or assets that can compound. If every raise gets absorbed by a more expensive lifestyle, your class position may not improve much at all. Bigger income with the same flow pattern often creates nicer stress, not real freedom. This is why the real problem is not just earnings, it is flow. Middle-class households often do many things right culturally while still failing financially because the structure beneath them is weak. They work, spend responsibly by social standards, maybe own a few liabilities that look like success, and still build very little net worth because too little money reaches productive assets. They are not lazy. They are just trapped in a system that rewards ownership more than effort. So what do you do about it without pretending you are about to become a startup millionaire? First, widen the gap between what you earn and what you spend. Now, that sounds basic because it is basic, but it is also non-negotiable. If there is no surplus, there is nothing to deploy into assets, and without assets, you stay dependent on labor alone. The gap is not glamorous, it is the engine. No engine, no movement. Second, buy assets earlier, even in small amounts. Broad index funds, retirement accounts, cash-yielding reserves, anything productive and scalable is more useful than waiting for some future version of yourself to start. Since asset prices can outrun wages, delaying ownership becomes expensive. Small ownership now often beats perfect ownership later. People wait until they feel ready, but markets do not care about your emotional timing. Third, reduce exposure to fake assets and status liabilities. Bigger car payments, overhoused lifestyles, and consumer debt often trap middle-income households in appearances rather than mobility. The middle class gets squeezed partly because it is culturally encouraged to consume signs of success before it actually owns the engines of success. That is a devastating sequence. If your visible life keeps upgrading while your balance sheet stays weak, you are not moving up. You are decorating the trap. Fourth, protect flexibility. Emergency savings, low fixed costs, and ongoing skill growth matter because the modern economy rewards adaptation more than obedience. If your expenses are rigid, your skills are stagnant, and your savings are thin, then every disruption becomes a threat. Flexibility is financial oxygen. It gives you room to survive shocks, switch direction, and avoid desperate decisions. In a fragile economy, optionality is one of the most valuable assets you can build. This is the mindset shift underneath all 4 steps. Stop acting like stability is something you inherit automatically from a paycheck. Today, stability has to be engineered. It comes from cash flow, asset ownership, low fragility, and the ability to adapt when the rules change again. That is why old financial advice feels increasingly incomplete. It was built for a world where wages carried more weight and assets were more reachable. That world is weaker now. You do not need to become rich overnight. You do need to stop behaving like someone whose entire future depends on wages, keeping up with a system that has not been kind to the middle for decades. The rules of the game changed. The question is whether your behavior has changed with them. If not, the system will keep teaching the lesson the expensive way. And the expensive way usually arrives slowly enough to be ignored until it is painful. So here is your move this week. Look at your income and split every dollar into 5 buckets: taxes, housing, debt, lifestyle, assets. Then ask one brutal question. Which bucket is getting stronger every month? And is it actually the one that will protect your future? That answer will tell you whether you are merely surviving in the middle or building your way out of the squeeze. The numbers may be uncomfortable. Good. Clarity is supposed to be useful, not flattering. The middle class is shrinking, and hard work alone no longer guarantees safety. Wages lag, assets outrun incomes, and the pressure in the middle is real. But getting left behind is not automatic if you adapt early. Build the gap, buy assets, cut status liabilities, and protect flexibility. You do not need to become a millionaire tomorrow. You just need to stop behaving like someone who will never become one.